Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the party and good morning. Welcome to the Toxic Happy Hour, where we are toxic towards Austrians being late. We are toxic towards scams that delay the adoption of global sound money. With your host, PUBLORD.HODL and Danish HODL, today with a very special guest straight out of somewhere in Europe, the man behind the 21 lessons behind the 21 coins. Dear GIGI, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. And you know, like in my book, I'm on block time since a long time, so everything plus minus like 10-15 minutes is still the same time for me.
I like that block time.
Yeah, that's good. We need to get one of them block clocks, Puppy. So GIGI, even though we can't see you, we always ask, you know, our guests about the really most important thing in the pop here. What are you drinking today?
Oh shit! I prepared something special. Give me a second.
Which you can describe, but we can't see.
I like it a lot. I'm not sure if you can see it. The camera might be too bright, but that's Satoshi Chin.
Nice.
Very good.
Satoshi what? Can you hear me?
Real Satoshi Chin. So.
Chin.
Yeah. I can hear you well.
Gin, right?
The gin from Gin and Tonic.
Yeah. The accent there threw me off. It was almost as bad as me. Poppy, you've been studying 21 lessons before today. Why don't you take it off and start the show?
Well, you forgot to ask me, of course. The standard IPA. Yeah, I know. I'll take over.
Because I know it's the same answer every time. Always another IPA. You're right. And on that note, I couldn't find any Austrian beers. I'm throwing in a little Mexican Specialo here, or whatever.
Yeah, it's the perfect time to drink Corona. Like, you know, never stop.
It's the morning.
Still great beer.
It's a great 11 a.m. beer. Puppy, let's get dead serious with GIGI here. I'm kidding. Yeah. But do you have any? Take it away, man.
No, yeah. First of all, you know, thanks again for being here. It's been a busy week. I was surprised with me and reading. I ordered like 3 or 4 Bitcoin books of people and authors that have been gracious enough to want to come on the show. So I've been knee deep in reading. So my Twitter game has suffered. You know, through the years, I always listened to, anytime I heard you on the podcast, it was always a must listen. I actually went back and re-listened to some of them. And it's cool because it'll generate more questions. Actually, you know, the 2 main writings I enjoy obviously are the 21 lessons and your letters to your family and friends, which is, I mean, there's not a more apropos time than now for that letter, because it's the number go up technology that's going to start, like many of us, that'll drive people to ask questions of the family members that had been screaming Bitcoin for 3 years. So, yeah, with regards to your book, one thing I loved about it was, you know, basically going down these rabbit holes. But I really liked how you broke it up to 3 distinct sections between the philosophical, economics, and technology. Most people just hit you straight. Most books hit you straight with what's wrong with the economy, what's wrong with fractional reserve. So it's interesting to come in from an angle of philosophically about it, which I really liked. Broke them in, and everything was like in bite-sized pieces. It wasn't like you had to read 30 pages in a chapter. So each chapter within those, but you know, seven each was its own rabbit hole. So I'm only guessing that you designed it that way on purpose.
Yeah, like it's on purpose in that sense that I was just very lazy when I actually did the print version of the book, because the book came about basically because of Twitter. someone asked like, "What have you learned from Bitcoin?" And I tried to answer that in one tweet, and miserably failed. And a tweet became a tweet storm, and the tweet storm became an article, and the article became 3 articles, and I just kept expanding it a little bit. And when I was done, I put it on 21lessons.com. And after a while, like I think like after a week or so, already a dozen people reached out to me. Since this is already a book, I should put it in book form, and they would buy it. So I did that, and people actually bought it and continue to buy it, which amazes me. And so that's the reason why it's bite-sized. It's actually, you know, it started out on Twitter, so it's still kind of a very long shit post as far as I'm concerned.
A very long what? Shit what?
A very long shit post. That's what I do, you know, like I shit post, and when it gets good enough, then I'll turn it into a book.
Right. So I want to just take this, you know, we're clearly getting off track here talking about Bitcoin and 21 lessons. I want to bring in a good question here from one of our dear listeners, Greg Sarge. What hair products do you use, GIGI, to get your hair like that?
I don't know if you know the ultimate fat stacker machine, like when you cut your own hair, actually. So you save on hair products, you save on everything else, and you can stack more sats. So that's what I'm doing.
Love it.
Like you can see it. It's clean shaven. It looks a little bit like the sun because it reflects so much.
It's the power of the brain behind the 21 lessons, behind the 21 coins. All right, Poppy, you can take the show back down to something not serious, like, for instance, the content of these 21 lessons. You have read the book, Poppy. How does 21 lessons help people, noobs, family members who calls us crazy and radical?
Well, yeah, you know, everyone is just time starved, for one, and for them to come in and to get, like he says, to try to explain Bitcoin in a tweet, as he found out, is a fool's errand. You just can't do it. What I think is brilliant about this is each chapter is its own little vignette. Within probably 10-15 minutes, you can read it, but that's all you can do for the day. I mean, honestly, this is one of those things I would recommend someone take 21 days to do it. On each day, read that chapter, and then ruminate on it, think about it. And as you know, links in the book version, but it gives you something to think about and research on your own. So I think practically it's perfect. Just when people are coming in to try to understand this, look, you don't have to have a 500-page book that goes you know, deep into the history of money. He touches upon it, but it lets you get a good overview and understanding, and then, you know, like you say, you're on your own at that point. You get on your own rabbit hole, and like you'll get sucked in.
Right. GIGI, what has your own family and friends that thought of you as radical and crazy Bitcoiner? How have they responded? Did they actually read it when you told them to read it?
I'm actually not sure how. I don't even know how many of my family have read it. A few have. Like my sister read it, and she started stacking recently, so it had some effect. I also made sure to send everyone the dear friends, dear family letter to let everyone know, you know, like there is this information out there. I'm not chilling anymore. So I basically wrote this letter because I realized that people are not willing to listen and not willing to learn when they're not ready. So I just wanted to let everyone know, as soon as you're ready, feel free to read this again, feel free to reach out to me. And I decided to publish it more broadly as well, because I thought it might be useful for others as well. But in terms of the book, I think most people that read it, like most people that are not Bitcoiners and are close to me, read it and they found it intriguing. They kind of liked it, and they thought it was like funny and well written or whatever. But to be honest, I think it's you already need to kind of know what Bitcoin is, and you already need to be willing to fall down the rabbit hole for my book to have any effect, I think. So I think it's more geared towards interested almost Bitcoiners than to complete new coiners. So my mother-in-law, for example, she proofread it as well, the German version, and she's still not stacking, so it wasn't as effective as I hoped it would be.
Right. I hear you. Puppy.
Yeah. One of the fascinating things to me with all Bitcoiners is the road they took to travel here. That the different attack vectors, what really makes sense to them. And this is, I mean, this book to me has something for everyone. To at least, I joke about not everyone's ready for Bitcoin. You gotta plow the fields of your mind, man. You gotta have some sort of prep. I was brought to it after learning what money isn't, learning about the Federal Reserve, learning about fractional banking. So I was, the course of my readings in life, I was prepped. So when I really got it, I got it. But for someone to come, we've been swimming in this sea of fiat for 50 years with nothing backing it. If you haven't prepped yourself, you're not going to get it right away. And I think this book offers something to everyone that'll make them start to think and question. Hey, how come? I go out to get lunch now, and lunch is $15, and it used to be $5. So that was one of my takeaways with this.
Right.
Yeah, and my goal was also to just show that Bitcoin is it goes way deeper than most people think, and it is very multifaceted. So my goal was to show just how broad an area of topics Bitcoin is touching, and just provide further links and further resources so that everyone can dig deeper if he or she wants to. On the online version, for example, you can read the book online for free as well. At the end of each chapter, there's a dozen links at least to podcasts and wiki articles and specific Bitcoin resources, other articles, other books that deal specifically with this chapter, with this little thing. For example, you can read the Bitcoin Standard, which is a really in-depth and long book, and you will have a deep background in economics and history of money and how money works and what money is. But you won't necessarily know how Bitcoin works in detail. You don't have any technical knowledge of Bitcoin after reading the Bitcoin Standard. Not really. It doesn't talk about hashes and how everything fits together and how exactly Nakamoto consensus works in great detail. And I think we are at the point now where Bitcoiners also start to specialize and start to get better at pitching their own angle. And we see it now with Andy Edstrom, for example, who wrote Why Buy Bitcoin, who has written stuff geared towards investors. And there is a lot for the technical folks already, because arguably the cypherpunks and the coders were first. So with Jimmy Song's books and Andrea's books, and if you really want to learn how to program, how to programmatically interact with Bitcoin, you can learn that since 3 or 4 years pretty well with books and other things. But the deeper topics around the philosophy are still largely unexplored, and I love that Breedlove is writing so much currently, and he's working on a book as well. And that's the chapter I started out with, because I think the most interesting thing about Bitcoin, similar to the most interesting thing about the internet, it's not necessarily how it works technically. The most interesting thing about the internet is not net neutrality and how packet switching works. It is actually what it changes and what you can do with it. And I think that is true for Bitcoin as well. And most people underestimate that still. The simple fact that you can remember 12 words and have all your wealth stored in these 12 words, nowhere else, that's something, once you wrap your head around that, everything changes. And there are not enough books written about that yet. And I'll try my best to write another one who goes in that goes into detail more on those deeper topics.
Right. Yeah. Bobby, I'm gonna cut in here and say something for once. Two things that GIGI said. first of all, you're right. What really makes Bitcoin? Well, I agree that what you're saying, that what makes Bitcoin interesting is not necessarily just the technical things. And I've heard many like programmers and technical people coming into Bitcoin from that angle, and they're saying, some of them are saying it takes a while before they sort of see the bigger money picture because they're looking at all the technicals. And I came in it from a non-technical view because I'm not technical at all. And so for me, it was like from the beginning straight up, I looked at Bitcoin from why is it a better money? How is it a money? And then I realized quickly that I first of all needed to do research on what money is, because and that really has helped me. If you don't do research and try and understand what money is, you don't necessarily understand why Bitcoin is money and why it's a better money and why it's the best money the world has ever seen, and likely could be the best money the world will ever see. And then there was another thing you said early on, but now I talk myself down a pathway so long that lost track of that one. So Pab, I'm going to give the word over to you, and I'll try and remember the first thing Gigi said I wanted to expand on.
Yeah, so one of the things he mentioned, all you can do is memorize 12 words and have infinite, value that you created stored in. You can go anywhere. And there's many stories of people, the Bitcoins that came, families fleeing countries, obviously can't take their wealth with them. That was one of the first things when I started to finally understand Bitcoin, was the unconfiscatable quality of it. And to me at the time, was more of a diversification issue. What I remember whenever I start a conversation about this, what I like to ask people, especially ones, people that are very well off, I just ask them, can you name one asset class that you own that can't be confiscated? Cars, boats, house, checking accounts. And when they finally can sit there and say, well, no, I say, well, guess what? Let me tell you about Bitcoin. So that's always an interesting angle for many people, is just the unconfiscatable quality of it when your keys are stored properly, of course. I was going to go back to something Gigi was talking about with electricity, because I made a note of this one. It's funny because like right now, if you ask people how electricity works, they can't tell you, yet they use it 24 hours a day. They can't tell you. In the book, you were talking about, I think, electricity and the internet and Bitcoin, that they're enabling in foundational technologies. Can you want to expand on that one a little bit?
Yeah, I think what we are seeing play out is that, like, most powerful technologies that we see are building up on each other. And I think Bitcoin Tina might have been the first person that say like that Bitcoin is an exponential technology built upon exponential technologies, and this is so profoundly true. It's really hard to emphasize that enough. Like, I think we are in for a ride, because every little improvement that is made on layers below Bitcoin, like, for example, we saw the rise of the smartphone, and this only took like 10 years. And without widespread electricity and without widespread infrastructure, this wouldn't have been possible. And Bitcoin is only possible because the whole world is connected pretty much. But there's still like a billion people that are still offline, and we're still iterating on all the layers below Bitcoin, and we're iterating on the Bitcoin base layer, and we're iterating on layer 2. And everything reinforces each other. Like every breakthrough in Lightning, every breakthrough in mobile technology, like we see it now. For example, the new Apple Box came out. It can sync the Bitcoin blockchain in a couple of hours. And we see it with smartphones. Like smartphones get faster and storage gets bigger and so on and so forth. So all of this enables new things. The stuff that we used to run on mainframes and on large desktop PCs everything fits now on your mobile phone. And the same will be true for Bitcoin applications as well. Everything that is now very complicated and very cumbersome to do and takes up a lot of bandwidth and takes up a lot of storage space, like all the nodes that we are building now and we love so much, you need a terabyte hard drive and so on and so forth. It's still powered by exponential technology, and the requirements that Bitcoin needs are not necessarily exponential. Like the block space, for example, grows linearly. So there will be a time where we will have mobile full nodes and it will just work beautifully. And I think people underestimate how quickly and how intensely networked the global society truly is. If you look at TikTok, for example, it went from like non-existent to, I don't know, 1 billion users in half a year or something. You know, like it's insane how fast some apps rise to the top. And the same can definitely be true for Bitcoin. And that's just on the application layer side. We don't even talk about the infrastructure layer side. We see now corporate Bitcoin standards emerging, and just wait until banks realize that they can replace their slow and outdated and very expensive settlement layer with Bitcoin. It will happen really, really quickly, just like it happened with voice over IP. You know, like telephone companies figured out they can use better technology, the internet, to route their phone calls, and that's what they did because it gave them an edge, it gave them an advantage. And the same will be true in the monetary space, I believe. And all of those are exponentials because all of those are networks. All of those benefit from network effects, and all of those are foundational technologies. You know, like once everyone is at least in part on a personal Bitcoin standard, on a corporate Bitcoin standard, things get super, super easy. The same way, like once everyone has an email address, things get super easy. Email is the same thing. It's enabling, you know, like you don't need to send letters anymore. You can do stuff electronically. And the same will be true for Bitcoin. It will take a little bit of time, but I also think it won't take as long as the transition to email, for example, because everything builds up on everything else. So newer innovations and newer transitions usually go way quicker.
It's these are things, Poppy, I didn't necessarily think about before, but it's really a great viewpoints GIGI has about all these other technologies. Like we spoke with Jeff about just 2 days ago, they are growing power-wise or technologically exponentially, and it's gonna make Bitcoin so much easier. Like I haven't really thought about, because the power of mobile phones and storage expands so quickly, much faster than the size of the Bitcoin blockchain, because we didn't go to stupid big blocks. We stayed with the smaller blocks. Then we can run full nodes on the mobile. What do you say?
It's not only that. Like it's not only like full node technology. It's also that every smartphone pretty much now has like a secure chip and a secure enclave and can handle private key material pretty well. You know, like it can generate your keys kind of securely, and all of this will continue to improve. And bam, suddenly you have something like a hardware wallet in your phone. And we see developments in that regard already. And yeah, it won't be perfect, and some manufacturers won't know what they're doing. But still, I'm super bullish on all of that, because just look 5 years into the future. It's not outrageous that everyone is in control of their own private keys, and you have like a hot wallet or like a Lightning equivalent hot wallet that you use for daily use, and you have your as we do now, your cold stash that you don't touch, and it's very cumbersome to access, and it's always offline. And I think all of those things will be taken care of, very similar to how we took care of all the problems with the internet. It was such a pain to connect to the internet, and now you just have a router, you get a box in the mail, you plug it in, you wait 5 minutes, and everything works. You know, and those will be the full nodes of the future. And we have that in the personal computing space already as well. You know, like you can also self-host a couple of things. If you get a Synology, it's very easy to set up, and it's just you plug it in, you wait until it initializes, and you're good to go. And that's what I'm talking about with it's those feedback loops that go forward and backward. Like Bitcoin will be easier to use, Lightning will be easier to use, upper layers will be easier to use, and everything that happens below it will make other things easier as well, like handling private key material, for example.
Yeah. So not to age myself here, but my first programming language in school was in BASIC. I literally that was the first one I came across, and that's probably way before your time, GG. Line 10, line 20.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot a line 15. and I laugh when you think back at what it looked like, and what it looks like now is crazy. We were talking to Jeff Booth on Tuesday, and one of the analogies he had one of his books was the folding piece of paper that after 50 folds is at the sun. And I always love that when it comes to technology, because it's so hard for us to get our head around where we are in folds. And yeah, hey, shout out to Daniel Princey, looking at you, man, because I listened to your interview with GIGI earlier, and I remember you stumped it.
Princey is not in the chat, is he? Because I just chose to finish my last Heineken because I thought he was here to give me crap about drinking Fiat beer.
He'll be listening later, but I'm laughing because GIGI stumped him on the lily in the pond question about how often it would have to double. At what point is it full? But with those analogies, because those are great ways that, I mean, it just shows how far removed we are from exponential numbers. But as far as these technology Bitcoin goes, what number fold are we on, or how much of the pond is covered at this point?
That's a great question. That's really a great question. Like, I would say I would stick to my estimate, and my estimate is that something approximating a hyperbitcoinization event will happen in 2028, 2029.
Okay.
And yeah. I know it's bearish. I know it's bearish because a lot of macro guys and a lot of other Bitcoiners, they say that this will be the last cycle and we will hit escape velocity and so on and so forth. But just to remind everyone what hitting escape velocity will mean. Hitting escape velocity will mean Bitcoin becomes the global monetary standard. All other fiat currencies will collapse. All other fiat currencies will hyperinflate, and it will just be chaos. Like, it will be the last day on Earth, like it won't be pretty. And I don't think it will happen in the next like 3 or 4 years. I even think that in 9 years from now, it's still like hyper bullish. I think it might take longer, but to answer your question, where are we in the fold? Since all of this is an exponential progress, I think every cycle, I think we will see those cycles continue. And every single cycle is its own little parabola. And if you zoom out, far enough, the most interesting graph when you look at Bitcoin is not necessarily the evaluation according to fiat money, but it is the general adoption. How many people have adopted the Bitcoin standard? And this will be one very large S-curve, just like it is for how many people have a TV, how many people have access to internet, how many people have access to running water, and so on and so forth. Like, all of those technologies get adopted over time, and what's interesting about it, the newer the technology is, the faster it gets adopted. And to answer your question, I think most of it will happen in the very last year. Like, that's how exponentials work. Most of the moves will happen at the very, very end. So I think in like beginning of 2028, we will be like 50% there, but it won't feel like it. I think it like the next 50% will happen in like 10 months or so. And I think it's going to be really, really, really wild. So we are still insanely early compared to the internet. I think, like, we are still before the early adopters. If you look at the model that looks at the percentages, how many people use the technology and are familiar with it and so on and so forth, we are still below. I think the number is 2.5% or so. Like, everything before that is even before the early adopters. Early adopters start at 2.5%, and we are still globally way below 2.5% in Bitcoin. And so we are so insanely early. We're like early 90s in internet technology, like end of 80s, early 90s, and it's beyond belief how early we are. And it's also beyond belief how much room Bitcoin still has to grow. Like, just imagine all the wealth that is currently stored in non-monetary assets, like in real estate and in the stock market and in like whiskey and expensive watches and old timers and whatnot, and art. People people realize that their money is melting away, so they use everything else as a kind of pseudo money, as a proxy money. And Bitcoin will make that obsolete. So it has way more room to grow than just the M1, M2 monetary supply. It has way more room to grow than just gold. It will eat up real estate as well. It will eat up other things as well. So, and the Hyperbitcoinization event, it will make it really, really hard to put any numbers on it, because once the dollar hyperinflates, how do you measure a value of a Bitcoin? You know, like, you can only measure it in how many stakes you can buy, how many houses you can buy, how many real goods, so to speak, you can buy. But it will also be difficult because other things will just react to it and deflate monetarily as well. Like, I think it will be a wild ride, and I can't wait to live through it.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. And as I keep saying, we are so incredibly lucky to be alive and witness one money taking over from another. The last time it happened was when gold took over from seashells about 3,000 years ago. You know, before the Roman Empire was the last time the money or the world saw new money being introduced as a better money. I'm not counting fiat currency, because that's just in a medium of exchange and not a real money, because the money you can store value in. I think it's really, really interesting what you're saying here, Gigi. And in terms of that we are early, and that we're still at before the early adopter stage. And I like the face of Poppy the entire time you spoke, because he's starting to realize that he's losing a bet with me in 2022. We can get into details with that later. But I think you're right. It's a matter of each halving cycle adds exponential growth. But the reason we're still far from having taken, Bitcoin having taken over as a store of value of the world, is that of fiat currency itself, we're only at 0.25% of global fiat currency value. It is nothing, just 0.25% of fiat currency. And we're not even talking about the likely 300 trillion that real estate and stock are acting as store value. Stock and real estate are worth about 400 trillion globally. By far, the most of that is just acting as store value, because fiat currency is being inflated so fast, so people need to store their value somewhere where it's not diluted by central banks. And when the interest rate is kept artificially low at either 0 or minus, there's just nowhere else to save your value from being diluted by the evil central bankers than stocks and real estate. Bitcoin is only entering that space now, and eating the store value market share. And if you look at the entire medium of exchange and store value market of the world, which is around 400 trillion, then Bitcoin, not only is it not at 1%, we're about 0.1%. So I agree, it could be as late as 2028, 2029. I do think, though, after the next halving cycle, fiat will collapse, because by that time, Bitcoin will reach about 30-40% of a global fiat currency value. And once it reaches that much, it will have the value of Bitcoin itself and it's eating away of the market share of dirty fiat will in itself create inflation on the fiats, because more and more companies want to accept Bitcoin, and there's going to be a premium paying with that dirty fiat. But that was a lot of talking. I just wanted to say, great points, Gigi, and thanks for making Poppy nervous here that he's about to lose a bet. Poppy, you have anything to say for your defense?
No defense at all, man. Look, like we both agreed, if either of us lose a bet, we both win in a way. And just quick, Gigi, what that entails is after the next high is the next, if there's a retracement, and if so, how large is it? I think this could be the escape velocity run. Anders thinks that it will retrace over 50%, and we have a nice steak dinner bet on it with Greg Josh. So that's the quick. I just think, well, what's that news coming in? Mass Mutual just bought $100 million of Bitcoin today. Oh yeah, there we go. The companies are coming.
Yeah, it's a nice bet. It's a very nice bet. I like it. Like steak dinner is classy. I don't believe the thing about escape velocity is you need to have an insane amount of conviction, and thus you need to have an insane amount of understanding. Like I think the US dollar still has some ways to go. Other currencies might fail in the meantime. But if you're a company, for example, like Michael Saylor, I don't believe that Saylor will cash out. I think he's too far down the rabbit hole for that. But a lot of companies might follow his lead, not necessarily understanding what they're doing. And like the the grip of a hodler is tested in the parabolic bull market, not necessarily in the bear market. Like try not to cash out when you're 1000xing. That's really something. And then watch it melt away again. Like it's only on paper, as we know. Like I don't count my fiat gains. Who the fuck cares? Like I only count my Satoshi gains. And of course, you can play these cycles and try to time things and so on and so forth. I'm personally not interested in that. It's just way too stressful for me. But I think if you're a CEO and if you have people on your board, I think this will make the parabolas crash again, because they're like, okay, now we made dollar gains in the hundreds or thousands of percent, and now our shareholders want to have something of that as well, and so on and so forth. Like, I don't see everyone doing a Michael Saylor and holding for 100 years. I just don't see it, and especially not at this point in time. Like we're still way too early. Like we're so insanely early. We're still blockchain early. We're still all the FUD of the last 10 years is still highly relevant for most people. Like 99.9% of all the people that hear of Bitcoin, they still eat all the FUD up. Like they have no idea what's going on, and I think people are just not ready yet to adopt the Bitcoin standard, either for themselves or for their company. And that's what you need to do for the parabola not to crash down again.
It's interesting you bring it up, especially with Michael Saylor, because this is something that I've been here just 3 years, trying to read everything I can, and until Saylor came along, I never thought of Bitcoin as just simply a store of value that you leverage in the future. I know you said Saylor, I believe, man, he'll hold it for 100 years. He's taken out a $400 million loan basically to buy more. Does that change? Did that change your thinking at all? And what hyper-Bitcoinization really looks like? Or is hyper-Bitcoinization to you, it's a medium of exchange and a unit of account? Or is this something where companies, they see the mad gains by MicroStrategy, now they're saying they don't understand it, but they're going to say, damn, let's just buy and hold it and leverage it later.
It's really hard for me to definitely say what will happen in a hyper-Bitcoinization scenario. The way I see it is like when you look at a pond or an aquarium or something and you don't clean it properly, it always gets dirtier and dirtier. So it is a process. But one night you will wake up and the whole aquarium is green. So this night is when hyper-Bitcoinization happens. So it's an ongoing process, but it has the potential that everything will then happen seemingly all at once. And I see like the fiat world collapsing, like similar as we saw in 2008, but without anything to rescue the system again. And once you have a global monetary collapse, it's not only the money, it's also the financial system and everything else. Like you won't be able to get any fiat money from the bank. Nobody will take your fiat money. Like every shop owner will refuse to take your fiat money. This is for me after hyper-Bitcoinization. I think we are in the process of Bitcoinization already. Like we are in the process of repricing everything else in sats. And I can't really tell if it's gonna happen like country by country or all at once. It might also be more gradual than I think. Like it might be that some companies, some parts of society adopted earlier. We definitely see that play out already. Like there are Bitcoiners that only accept sats, that only if they can pay in sats, they will pay in sats. They only will do work in sats and they don't have to work for fiat because they're wealthy. So maybe this will continue. Maybe this will continue on a company level, who knows? But I think hyperbitcoinization event is still a couple of cycles away. My guess would be 3, counting this one as well. So I'm guessing 2029.
Wow, I mean, I thought Anders was bearish, but geez, you're an Anders bear too. Come on, man, get on
Hey,
get on the train.
Poppy, you're
and,
not Joe
and
Biden.
again, you know,
Come on, man.
again, like hyperbitcoinization is when fiat is gone and it doesn't make any sense to say how much is a Bitcoin worth in dollars or euros or yen or anything else, or how much is
Yeah.
a Satoshi worth. It's just like
Yeah.
using the Italian lira now. You know, how much
Yeah.
Italian lira is this Satoshi Jin worth? I can't even tell you. It's, you know, like it's a nonsensical question. And the same will be true in the future. How many dollars
No.
is this Satoshi worth? It's a nonsensical question. Like dollars are worth nothing anymore. They don't exist anymore.
So when does that transition? I think I posted that once because I'm curious. When I know some Bitcoiners, especially like yourself, you value everything in Bitcoin. Fiat is nothing. But when is the truest value of Bitcoin? What's that transition point from what it's worth in fiat to what its purchasing power is? When is that transition where it just turns into straight the purchasing power and everyone realizes there's nothing left in fiat?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really tell you when. Again, like my very rough and wild guess would be like 2029. But I think to understand this process, you just look at every country that hyperinflated in the past. And if you look at Venezuela, like when was the process when everyone decided to use US as their unit of account? You know, like I think it's an individual process that some people figure it out earlier, some people figure it out later. Some shop owners decide, yeah, your Bolivar are worth nothing anymore, so don't even show up with them. If you want to have X, you need to bring dollars, and I think it will be the same with Bitcoin. If you wanna hire me, if you wanna have my services, if you wanna have my goods, then you have to bring satoshis. Your dollars and your euros are worthless to me. So yeah, I think that's the way it's gonna go, and it might happen really quickly. You know, like that's what I believe in, because very similarly, other technologies just did away with old technology. You know, like the fax machine and like it's all of it. If you want to send me a fax, I can't even receive it anymore. You know, please send me an email, and even email is outdated. Please hit me up on Telegram or something else. You know, and I can see that societal transition happen way quicker than most people think.
Right. I think Poppy may be here actually being victim of what Jeff describes of overestimating the near term and underestimating the long term. I'm just messing with you. But you see it game over in this cycle, which would be great for all of us. Yeah, it at least, nonetheless, you know, 10 years from now, we'll look back and see. You remember that time in 2020 or the early 20s, and we didn't know how it was going to play out, and it was a wild ride. And these are the fun days because we don't know yet, and it's one of the most important events in human history that we finally get a true sound money that is not manipulated and destroyed by government.
So
yeah,
I was going to say, no, I was going to say, aside, you know, one of my favorite parts of the book is, you know, when you look at the 21 rules, there's different rules that I really resonate with. Everyone's going to resonate with different ones. Of course, my favorite is number one. Number one was like, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you, which of course I agree with. The second one after that, it may not be one of his rules, but I think from Parker Lewis, gradually then suddenly. And that's what it's going to be. I just think the suddenly is going to be, it's coming faster than anyone can imagine. It's going to be those last two folds from 20, well, or the Lily example, from 98 to 99 to 100, those last three folds are going to blow you away. They're going to, or not folds, but the growth of, it's going to blow you away. Yeah.
And also, to be honest, I don't really think it makes that big of a difference if this is the last cycle or the next one is or the one after that is. It's still, like the time scales. It won't happen in 100 years. Like it's not 100 years away. It's either like 1 year away or 2 or 5 or 9 or 10. It's definitely not 100. I don't think it's 50. Like I personally think it's like 9 years away, but you might be right. It's very, very hard to tell. Like what blows me away is how quickly Michael Saylor was able to get up to speed. And I'm not saying like he's a god and he understands everything perfectly and he makes the right calls every time, all the time. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is it only took him like 3 months. What took me personally like 3 years. And he was able to understand Bitcoin on a very, very deep level in a very short amount of time. And of course, he's super smart. Like he has the credentials to back it up. Yeah, exactly. Like he's an aeronautics engineer and whatnot. Like he knows his stuff. He knows his technology. He knows his physics. He knows a lot of things. So it makes sense that he got Bitcoin quickly. But again, like if you're a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, you're probably in general very, very smart. So it might be that a lot of smart people with a lot of capital be able to grok Bitcoin very, very quickly and just decide, okay, that's it. The dollar is now that to me, or the euro is that to me, or the yen is that to me, and Bitcoin is the new shit, and that's now my reserve currency, and that's how we're gonna do business from now on. So I don't know, it might happen.
We will see. It is interesting. But now, since we did get GIGI the Bear on the show, no, and I like that GIGI is pulling the vision here closer to mine from where you are, Poppy, in terms of our bet. But
well, listen, I'll jump in here because
no,
look.
No.
Go ahead.
Since we're talking about, or GIGI is talking about, 2029, that cycle might be the one that is more realistic. What is your expectations for this cycle, GIGI? Like in terms of price in US dollars, which at the end of this day still is relevant because the world still is pricing everything in dollars. I mean, you know what I mean, in fiat currency. It's still working as medium of exchange. So an increase in the dollar price does mean an increase in your purchasing power as a Bitcoiner. What is your expectations timing wise and dollar wise for this bull run until the next halving?
Are we talking 2019 dollars or are we talking 2021 dollars? Because there's like a 30% difference in the difference in dollars.
So I would say let's talk in the dollars for each year as they go, because even if you want to say the top is in 2022, let's know in 2022 dollars because it's relevant. And I totally agree that that it's changing every year. And to me, there's no doubt that Bitcoin is at 20,000 pretty much because of the amount of printing. Like we are higher than where we would have been without COVID stimulus. So in terms of moving target inflated dollars, what are we looking at?
Okay, so I think the numbers that we are going to see on the exchanges, I think they won't necessarily make sense. So I'm not interested in calling the top. I'm more interested in looking at the floor after the correction, and I think we'll be up by a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see in the stupid highs in the ranges of 300,000 to 1 million per Bitcoin. Like that wouldn't surprise me at all. Like it definitely, if there is a supply shortage, it can easily shoot up to 1 million and crash down again. I think the data that we are currently seeing from Glassnodes and other sources that indicates that people are withdrawing from exchanges and putting everything into cold storage and just they know what they are doing. Like most buyers seem to know what they are doing because they're either stacking or buying large amounts, auto-DCing large amounts without moving the market too much and withdrawing everything to cold storage. I don't think that most Bitcoins are up for sale. We still have very deep liquidity, like a lot of Bitcoin is going around compared to, for example, the amount of Bitcoin that is mined daily. So already with Grayscale and other companies, more Bitcoin are bought daily that are brought into new circulation daily. So more Bitcoin are bought daily on the regular than Bitcoin is mined daily. So that's something that's really important to point out, because that means we still have weak hands and we still have sellers, you know. And I think once weak hands and sellers dry up, because the hodler base is growing, we can see insanely stupid prices. But keep in mind that this, I don't think this, like 1 million per Bitcoin price floor can't be held for a long time. Well, it just can't. We're not there yet.
So are you saying that from this insane price, which might reach 1 million, you believe that there'll be like a minimum 40% retracement?
Yeah, probably, like minimum. I know, you know, like in 2017, for example, to cash out at 20K, it was impossible. Like, try cashing out at 20K. It was a couple of hours, basically, you know, that you had, and all the exchanges were down. And I think I see that happening again in a similar fashion, you know, like try getting rid of your Bitcoin once it hits that crazy number, whatever it will be. It might be 300,000, it might be 500,000, it might be 1 million. It doesn't really matter, because, you know, like it's very hard for me then to talk about real prices. Like, it's just going to be stupid, because there won't be a lot of supply and there will be a lot of demand, and so the numbers are going to be stupid. And what's way more important is where we land again. And I think we will land again at, just like in the other cycles, like 10x higher at least. That's where we land.
Puppy, anything?
Yeah, a lot of things. Listen, man. What I love, some of the examples in his book is trying to get
the red balloon. The show is saying by Plan Marcus he found the red balloon. I had to put it in there while you were talking, Puppy. It gave me an excuse to interrupt you. So rude. I'm sorry. I'm kidding. Please carry on. Please carry on, mate.
No, in the book, one of the things I love is it shows us how far our mindset is from being able to wrap it around numbers and viewpoint. And I'll give you an example. There's one of my favorite illustrations was the 1 trillion seconds. And 1 trillion seconds ago, there's an illustration of how far under ice all these cities were in North America, because we were back in the ice age. And it's hard to wrap your head around these numbers. 1 trillion seconds, you know, to be, I think it was 21,000 years ago. And guess what? We're looking at like a national debt of 27 trillion, to put that in perspective. Okay, so that's just one example. This year, if you want a really cool one to me, is Michael Saylor and company. They bought up over, I think, 3 months of supply, or I'm sorry, 2 months. But they only needed a few companies to buy up the same amount. Grayscale, the annual supply is getting eaten up, and we haven't even seen the big money come in yet. And the annual supply is just getting eaten up every day. So I'm fascinated to see where we are moving forward. So yeah, GIGI, how do you get these exponential numbers? How do you get these examples out to people in a way they can really understand it? Because it's hard for many.
Yeah, I don't think there is any, like, I don't even think there is a way. Like, I've been studying things like these for quite a long time, and I still can't wrap my head around exponentials intuitively. You know, like, you kind of need to know the examples. You kind of have to run the numbers to understand exponentials. You just have to do the math. You just have to figure it out, and then you will see how astonishing it is. But I don't think I don't think the human brain is capable of having an intuitive understanding of exponentials. It just doesn't work. Like, your intuition is always off, like, by orders of magnitude, literally. Like, not just a little bit. You're way off all the time. And yeah, that's why I also think that the coming price top, for example, it just can be insanely stupid. It will only be stupid for a couple of days or a couple of hours, but you know, like the last move upwards of the parabola, it can be insanely stupid.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how stupid it gets. Like
Oh,
I'll be holding through it and shit posting through it.
Yeah, that's the time we want to tell family and friends to buy just for the laugh. I'm kidding, of course. We've been trying to convince them for,
no.
yeah, since we first discovered Bitcoin. Puppy.
Yeah, you know, those mind games of trying to wrap your head around the exponentiality of things, it'll make you crazy. But I love to see it because all of a sudden, like you said, the pond is green. One day the pond is green and you don't realize how it happened when you started with something so small.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that, and one of the things also, like philosophically what you put in there, and I've heard a couple of people talk about this, and the things that are a paradox, what's counterintuitive. And I think you said something about openness, or an open system. Openness is paramount for security, which is hilarious in my mind sometimes, because you think the one thing I want to do is close things off and protect it. And you protect it by building walls. But the ultimate security comes from having absolutely zero walls. That paradox is just amazing to me.
Yeah, there are a list of paradoxes like this in Bitcoin. I actually I still have it. I still have it as one of my drafts to like write about them all. There's a bunch of them, and it's the fact that there is security in openness. It's just because mathematical security works very differently than physical security. Like in the physical world, there is often what in the computer science and in the security world we call security through obscurity. So you don't really know how the door opens, and that's why it's secure. And you don't really know where, like, you know, where you could attack the Death Star, for example, and that's why it is supposedly secure. And in computer science and in mathematical security, it just doesn't work like that. You need to have provable security, and you can only prove it by laying everything out in the open and just let every mathematician that is worth his salt see if this is actually secure or not. And if you can't break the math, then it's secure. And that's also how Bitcoin works to an extent. You know, I say only to an extent because in Bitcoin we also have this game theoretical aspect that we need to rely on greedy actors, so to speak, on self-interested greedy actors. We have to rely on the network, on the people that to run their own full nodes, enforce the rules, and make the miners our slaves in the process. And we have to also trust that 51% of the miners act honestly in their self-interest and are driven by incentives and not by a non-monetary incentive to destroy the network, for example. Like Bitcoin security is really hard to understand. It's really hard to wrap your head around because there are so many moving pieces, and it's part physics, part game theory, part mathematics, and very special kind of mathematics. And so it's very difficult to understand. But another paradox that I think is really cool is, I think I have it also in the 21 lessons, that Bitcoin is everywhere and nowhere. So Bitcoin is non-local, and so you can't really tell where your Bitcoins are. Like, are they in your seed phrase? Like, not really. Like, that's the seed of your private key that lets you move the Bitcoin, the information on the ledger. And so it's really funny to talk about that because it makes legislations really difficult. Like, if you want to pass legislation that Bitcoins are not allowed to cross borders, for example, you can't even say where the Bitcoin is. Like, and
it's brilliant.
Try to enforce information not crossing borders. Like, the only thing you need to access your Bitcoins is like a password, and try to enforce that. So that's really hard. And another paradox that I really like is oh man, now I lost it. I had another one lined up and I lost it.
glad I'm not the only one. But while you find your train of thought, GG, I just want to say it's hilarious that the level of toxicity on the Toxic Happy Hour and in our chat and amongst our hosts is so a guy that is saying that all fiat currencies will collapse in this decade, a guy that says Bitcoin could easily reach $1 million in this halving cycle. He's being called out as a bear. That's the level of stupidity and toxicity that we have on the Toxic Happy Hour. I love your thoughts, though, Gigi. I mean, and it's really great to have you on. All this great input and view angles that you're bringing to the table.
Oh, I found it again. The other paradox, namely that Bitcoin produces scarcity by relentless copying. Like Bitcoin is pure information, and it is a copying machine, like all computers are. Like the whole network, it just every single block is copied, like every transaction is copied, everything is copied all the time. But it makes sure, like it has this intricate dance that makes sure that invalid copies are useless, and this is actually what generates the scarcity. You know, like nothing is really scarce. Not even your private key is scarce. You can copy your private key, like it doesn't matter. You can copy your private key a million times. You can have redundant backups. You can even give it to other people. Like it doesn't really matter. Once it's used, then it matters. But it's really funny how Bitcoin, every information, everything is copied. Like the code is copied, like nodes multiply, the binaries are copied, everything is copied all the time, and the whole organism, like every cell of the organism exchanged itself as well. And this is what generates absolute scarcity. So copying generates scarcity in the end.
Yeah, you know, I was gonna say, I love it. It's interesting whenever you hear comparison about Bitcoin to something being organic. Because in a way it is, the way it grows, it's organic. The way it was designed, that perfect paradox of greed, work. This is our one shot, truly. You'll never create another entrance into this type of truth. And it is a truth, you know, that they said truth will set you free. Well, guess what copying is? Copying is the truth on many things. And I love the fact when we talk about it being religious in a way. In a way it is. What's funny is the ones rewarded the most are the ones that understand it the least. And what I mean is the people that just nod their head and, you know what they do? They just buy Bitcoin and stack. They don't have to, they don't waste years and years trying to be convinced and then buy in. They simply buy, nod their head. I get it, leap of faith, but I get it. And I think it's great. So in a way, it is religious.
I think it's a hilarious viewpoint, because you need a lot of conviction to buy constantly. It's just hold and never sell. And I think conviction comes with understanding as well. So I don't I don't buy the argument that everyone who's doing that is just stupid and nodding their head. I think the plebs know exactly what they're doing.
Have we met? I could barely, you know, run a node. Yet here I am buying more than most.
It's fine. You understand the important things. But I think we have to start talking about memes, because otherwise the chat will eat me alive.
Yeah. So from Lapra HODL, what is your favorite meme, GG?
It's a really tough question, because I'm like a meme collector. So out of the thousands and thousands, it's really hard to pick just one. But the first one that came to mind was the original, very old Matrix meme that goes like, so what you're telling me, I can sell Bitcoins for millions one day. And Morpheus is like, no, what I'm telling you is when you're ready, you won't have to. Something along those lines. I really, really still like that. Like it has stood the test of time. But I also like the surreal new ones, you know, that all the guys are putting out, you guys included. And you know, like the more raunchy and surreal, so to speak, the better in my book. I really like the porn remakes, you know, where you have like a porn model that will tell you that you're not all in enough or something, you know, like there are a bunch of good ones. So I can get behind all of that. It lightens up my day.
Or the one about I don't know if you should be saying that, but the one about that the price range right now is really tight. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No.
Right, yeah,
I actually have another one that I look back on often and I really like. It's where this girl, it's like a 4-image meme, and this girl has a fish in her hand, and she squeezes the fish, and it's about like Bitcoin's quantitative hardening, and the fish goes like harder, harder.
Hey man, if this show is not the best, I don't know what is, because we got Jeff Proof drinking beer at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. Now we're talking about porn memes on a Thursday with their GG.
he had 3, man.
Awesome. Yeah, I know, man.
We've
awesome.
got Jeff drinking beers at pirate time before noon, and we got Gigi talking porn memes. Doesn't get much better. I mean, honestly, I'm just living the dream.
Hey, dude, listen. After this is over, man, Gigi's going to open up his Twitter, and I think there's like porn memes everywhere.
Everyone will tag me in the porn memes. I know it already.
all the memers out there, and we have great memers in the Toxic Happy Hour crew, like RD, Greggy, Puppy himself, Labra, Plan Marcus, Microchat, and so many more. And I think all of you have a task to go out and share your best Bitcoin porn memes and tag Gigi. Let's kill his notification line.
I love it.
I love it. But to be honest, like to loop this back to a somewhat serious conversation, I think that's one of Bitcoin's strengths still, that it's such an outlier and weird community. A lot of people, like, as far as I'm concerned, as the longer we can front run Wall Street, the better. And I think, the Wall Street people have a hard time getting behind the porn memes, and we can see it with Raul, for example. You just troll them enough, and they will have fun staying poor for real. Like they will pour all their money into XRP, and they will get legit poor.
So I think RD, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was RD that, so there was this conversation between George Gammon and Raoul Pal, and they were both disgusted by how there was this meme of have fun staying poor. And I believe it was RD that took that one bit of Raoul's conversation where he was saying have fun staying poor, and just ran it again and again and again in the meme, like have fun staying poor, have fun staying poor, have fun staying poor, have fun. And it's just great how you can take people out of context there. I think it was RD.
I'm still amazed that Udi managed to pull this off. So again, Udi Wertheimer, congrats on this. Seriously, like that's amazing that you can just, like it's how Bitstein said. I think it was at BitBlock Boom. He had a keynote and he talked about the meme warfare, and he basically said, it's our meme world and everyone else is just living in it. And we see that play out now, like we saw it in Congress. They talked about there's Bitcoin and there's shitcoin, and we see it on CNBC and we see it everywhere else. Like it's amazing how powerful this shit is, and it's basically small little mind viruses that fuck you up in all kinds of ways. And if you're not battle tested, then you will definitely have fun staying poor like Raoul. It will get to you, and you won't get Bitcoin because of it, I think.
It's kind of perfect that Bitcoin memes helps us to achieve that people without humor will understand Bitcoin later. If you don't have humor, if you're not able to laugh at yourself, if you put yourself on a pedestal, you have too much self-respect, blah blah blah. These memes will scare you off, and you will have fun staying poor.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just, like growing up on the internet and around internet culture helps a lot. Like it helps a lot to get familiar with Bitcoin and understand it as well. And I think it's deliciously, like it's so perfect that central bankers, they will be the last people to get it. Like they will die. All of them will die before they understand Bitcoin, because their whole worldview is against Bitcoin, and they don't even have the toolkit to understand what's going on. Like they don't have the toolkit to also look through the memes and look through Bitcoin Twitter and look past that and understand that this is really serious shit, you know, and they just won't get it. And I think that's so beautiful. So just keep popping out those insanely beautiful memes, everyone.
As I've said many times before, Bitcoin is financial poetry.
Absolutely.
Here's one of the things that I'm usually loath to do, is sometimes you never want to have an echo chamber in life. You never want to have an echo chamber. And this is a paradox to you, GIGI. To me, you need a Bitcoin Twitter echo chamber. The Bitcoin Twitter echo chamber, to me, reinforces everything that is good. It's the one place I would ever say, listen, cut out everything else, honestly, because like the cyber hornet thing, I love, and it keeps your hands strong. You buy more. It reinforces everything we believe in. You don't want any outside distraction.
Yeah, absolutely. And this again loops back to cultish and religious aspect. I think, you know, I think that's also the reason why every insane cult isolates its members. And for us, it's just voluntary self-isolation, so to speak. And it's important because you need to sharpen your ideas, you know. And as they say, iron sharpens iron, and you find a lot of iron on Bitcoin Twitter. And if you don't have your arguments in line, and if you, I mean, it's true, you know, like it's definitely true. You need to have your arguments lined up. If like people on Bitcoin Twitter, they see right through you if you're full of bullshit, and you won't survive. You won't survive for like 10 minutes. It's insane. Yeah. Like people are really sharp, and this includes also. I believe this includes humor and understanding the memes. Maybe not all of them, you know. Like there's definitely some that come from beyond, but in general, just don't take yourself too seriously, and also concentrate on ideas and arguments, and not on people and on egos.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I love, you know, one of our favorite new people in our chat is Camilla, who she and her husband are new to Bitcoin, but I try to explain, or I know Anders has, you're not alone here. You got so many friends, you got great resources. And I remember once being here early on, I was dumb and got stuck in an argument I really couldn't get out of. I didn't know enough about Bitcoin, but the great thing was I could at some of the Bitcoiners I knew, some great, and boom, before you know it, man, cyber hornets were there in that chat, just laying waste and protecting me. So I love it.
It's great. It's great.
I can't believe it, but I think Camila is still here. Just shows how cool and resilient and true Bitcoiner she has become in a matter of 7, 8, 9, 10 days or something like that. That was just a little side note.
Yeah, she's pretty toxic.
Yeah, she's getting it. It's good.
I think I even saw her TikTok video on Twitter or something. So that's definitely good, you know, like the decentralized marketing team spamming all channels. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Being female in the Bitcoin overlay doesn't hurt.
That's true.
But it's wonderful to see when brain activity is added.
Listen, okay.
Case of
look, I'm going to start an alt account. I'll start an alt account.
You see Bridget Dance just being honestly.
Yep.
Okay, I don't because this is going on the record, but so I don't want to maybe say what I really mean, but you know, and then selling out to whatever paid her to do some Bitcoin video is just get out of here, get out of here.
That's so on Bitcoin. Like, you say what you really mean, or you go home, my friend. Bitcoin's the truth. Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin's a honey badger. Say what you mean, or we don't have a show.
That's right. I think Marty from the chat has a very, very relevant question. When puppy TikTok?
Wow, you guys want to see me on TikTok? Okay, let me download it, I guess.
Right.
I'm an old man. What am I going to do on TikTok?
get a burner phone before you install TikTok, because it's basically 100% Chinese spyware, and they're not even
Yeah,
hiding
exactly.
it. Like it's
Yeah.
like the worst, the most cursed app there is in existence right now. So
Yeah.
if you
So
install it, you have to go full on out and just do a naked dance or something, because it's, they basically know you inside out anyway once you install it, so you can just strip and dance naked and do like a little porn gif meme yourself or something.
so I know you. I know obviously you respect, and everyone should, their privacy. I have low standards in that regard. When it comes to things, I know some people are like using things like graphene operating system. Do you recommend anything like that? And how do people go about a little bit more privacy and security?
So it's really hard to recommend anything specific, because everyone is along, like, it's the same with security, like it's a process. It's there is no silver bullet, and there are no like this fixes everything solutions. So to increase your privacy, it is quite a journey, and you have to jump
No.
through a lot of hoops, and you kind of know what you're doing. So it's definitely involved, and you have to take it slowly and just take it step by step. You can't go full 100% dark from one day to the next. And if you're interested in that, check out Jameson Love's work. He has, I think, one of the best write-ups, especially for Bitcoiners, how you might go
Yeah.
dark. And this involves, like changing your address, never using your real address again, maybe even, like incorporating yourself, so you don't have to use your real name for any dealings and stuff like that. But just in
Yeah.
general, there are good online things like the security checklist, for example. Just make sure to use an ad blocker, make sure to use privacy aware browsers, make sure to use the password manager, for example. I mean, that's related to security, not necessarily privacy, but those things are obviously related, because if you use the same email address and the same password for every service, and one of them has a data leak, then you're basically fucked. And this, like, security impacts your privacy as well. And all of it is kind of elaborate and complicated. I can urge everyone to try to. It's similar. It's very similar to the Bitcoin journey. Like, it's very important to run your own node and to hold your own private keys, but it's also very difficult to do it in the first 10 minutes. So you want to educate yourself first, and then maybe you want to take self-custody, and maybe a little bit later you want to set up your own node and actually use it and connect to it and stuff like that. And similar with the privacy stuff, you might want to stop using walled gardens, no matter how beautiful they are. So delete your Facebook, try to get rid of Google as much as you can, use DuckDuckGo instead. Try to change your email provider, use ProtonMail, for example, instead of Gmail. Try to use different calendar software. If you can, get rid of Apple, like if you have iOS devices, I know that's a big switch, but switch to something else. And I think the only viable option right now is Android. And if you really value your privacy on Android, you want to use like something like Graphene. But more things are coming out every day, like the Librem phone, for example, and there are some other. There's new hardware and new software coming out that really respects your privacy and runs on free and open source software. So this is to be recommended as well. But I also realized that it's not practical for everyone. Like, some people are forced to use certain products because of their work, for example. So just try to educate yourself, take it one step at a time, and every little bit helps.
Right. Before you answer why Apple is bad, now I'm not using Apple, but I'm interested in that because I was thinking about going to Apple because I'm just tired of these Microsoft computers. But before we do that, let's just all say cheers to everyone in the chat having GIGI on the toxic happy hour today. To the toxic army, cheers to all of you. Cheers to you, GIGI.
Cheers.
You know what's interesting is this is what GIGI actually looks like in real life, so it's hard for him to hide his disguise. You see him walking down the street like this, that's him.
Yeah, floating sunglasses, always watch
Floating
out of them.
sunglasses.
Right.
So
what's that about Apple?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like the thing is, Apple, for example, positions itself as privacy aware, but you have to realize that's mostly marketing. Of course, there was this court case where they said like, yeah, no matter what you're doing, we are not unlocking this phone. Like
Yeah.
we are not decrypting this phone, and everyone was like, yeah, Apple. And now with the recent macOS upgrades, it turned out that they were actually phoning home and they were doing some stuff that's not necessarily privacy aware. So the bottom line is, if you're not using free and open source software, you have no idea what the software is doing under the hood. So you have no way to verify if the claims that Apple makes are true. And historically, those claims were never true. No matter what company, like as we saw in the Snowden revelations, for example, the Five Eyes and just the large government bodies in general, they are basically in bed with all the big companies. It doesn't matter if it's Google or Microsoft or Facebook or Apple or whatever. They have ways to access your information, and of course, I mean, like it depends on your attack vector. It depends how seriously you want to take all this. But I would say in today's day and age, it's a mistake to not take this seriously enough. So every step in the right direction is actually a step in the right direction. And it's what amazes me as well is how short-lived the historical memory of most people is, because it wasn't too long ago that any infringement on privacy meant basically death. Like I hate to bring up this example, but it's a valid one, and it's worth to think about it. Like if you were a Jew in Nazi Germany and someone was able to figure out that you're a Jew, then it was game over for you. And I don't think society has evolved enough for something similar or of similar magnitude to happen again. So we see it already, like if you say the wrong thing online, you're deplatformed. Your whole livelihood is destroyed. If you're a YouTuber and you're deplatformed, it's worse than you're getting fired, because you would have to do something completely else, because YouTube is basically the only game in town, and you have to you can't be a YouTuber anymore. You know what I mean? Like you can't simply get a second job. You have to do something completely else. And so similar games are being played already, and it all relates back to control and power, and just having everything about you out in the open gives other people control and power over you. And if you want to take that power and that control back, then you have to take care of your security, you have to take care of your privacy. And in the Bitcoin land, of course, it means holding your own private keys, running your own node, and so on and so forth. But all of that is related. It's all about, taking care of yourself and taking care of your self-sovereign actions and behavior online as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot to think about there. When it comes to technology, I don't know if you've heard of Neil Postman. Neil Postman, he wrote, I think mostly in the 70s and 80s, he talked about the effect of technology on culture. But one of the things he talked about was that as you'll see now, is we're drowning in information. We are drowning in it to the point where, where do we go from here? How do you decide what is valid information or not? But when we talk about being open source is better, I'm thinking, you know what? Instead of trying to hide things, you put everything out there. You just drown these people in information, and they don't know what the hell's going on. Your own information, misinformation, to a point where they can't even recognize you anymore. So it's almost like hiding in the open.
Yes, I like this idea in general, and I actually I had a similar idea a couple of years ago when it was obvious that deepfakes were on the rise. And for example, there are anti-tracking tools. There are browser plugins that you can install, and they will just in the background click on every single link that is presented to you on the page. And so it destroys the tracking heuristic. So it cannot, like the Facebook algorithms and everything else cannot build an accurate profile of yourself, of yeah,
Oh.
of you, because you seem to be interested in everything, and you seem to be in every age group, and you seem to be in every gender, because you just click on everything, you know. So, and the similar idea is what you said, you know, like there is deepfake technology where you could theoretically just take 1 million pictures online of speeches and events and whatever, and just fake yourself in it automatically, and just publish them again and upload them, and just you were everywhere at once. So if there is video footage or a picture of you online that shows you that you were at this protest, you can just say, yeah, no, that's one of my deepfakes. I wasn't actually there. Just look at this. At the same time, I was at another place at the beach, just chilling. And so I played around with that idea, and I think it can work, kind of, but still, it's the technology is not exactly there yet. It would be very evolved to do that. And as it is now, the information that you put out there, it's very, very, very easy to bring it all back to your real identity and what you did and where you've been. I'm not sure. Do you have like an Apple phone, or do you have a Google phone?
No, listen, I got to jump in on this one, because you're saying that technology isn't there yet. But if I remember correctly, did you not say earlier there's software, there's a program, though, that can take your voice and reconstruct your face from it?
Yeah, they're the first research pieces on that, and it kind of works better than you might expect. So for this reason, there are some people like 6102, for example, he's not willing to dox his voice, and it is kind of amazing. I don't expect this to work perfectly. It might work similar to someone who works in audio engineering and has just listened to 10 million people talk and knows intimately how they might look, and that's how machine learning like figures those things out in a similar way.
Just so you know, that's not really Anders what you're looking at there. That is a heavy smoker talking. That's a heavy smoker face.
Yeah, I think society will have some interesting problems in the next couple of years, because as we see already, deepfakes are like consumer grade deepfakes are already really good, and they will get better and better in no time. Like in 2 years from now, you will not be able to distinguish a deepfake from the real thing. The same will be true for the spoken word. Like we see it already. Like you can make Joe Rogan say anything. You can make even dead presidents say anything. And there will be apps for all of that. So it will be very easy in this deepfake future to say, that wasn't really me, like I didn't really say that, and that's not really a recording of me. But I think there will be ways around that as well. Like humanity in general is really good with dealing with stuff like that. And for example, if you look at some of the recent tweets of HODL, for example, he published the SHA-256 hash before he actually tweeted what he was meant to say. And there are cryptographic ways around proving the authenticity of a recording and of an image that you can't tamper with after the fact. So we might see the rise of actually like
the machines
signed material that is officially published, and then you have to check the signature if it was actually published by the person that is shown there.
So hey, listen, one of my favorite guys, HODL, had a great point. And I was starting to think of this. Are we living in a simulation? He wants to ask, are we living in a simulation?
If we're living in a simulation, Bitcoin will crash it. So that's what I'm going to say about that.
Nice. Bitcoin is taking down the, what's it called in the Matrix? The Matrix. Bitcoin will take down the Matrix.
Yeah, like we can see already the cracks in the simulation, I think. And it might be because of an insane rise in hash power, and the simulation just can't keep up. So you have to simulate all the hashes that are going on in the Bitcoin network. And, that's kind of hard to do as well. So, it might explain all the UFO sightings and the Trump presidency and the COVID stuff and some other things. I don't know.
Coming down. 2020 has proven it. The Matrix is shaking.
So I have another theory to run by you. That Atlantis was real. We've done this before. We hit the highest point. Maybe Bitcoin was the rise end and destructed us then. What do you think about the thought that society did hit the highest point and self-destructed, and we basically came out of the primordial muck to reinvent it again?
Yeah. it's interesting how often that comes up also in other more ancient cultures, that like everything is cyclical, and society in general is cyclical as well. And there are definitely interesting thoughts and theories and findings in regards to advanced civilizations in the past. I would be very surprised if we ever got to that point on Earth. I think we understand the geological processes on Earth quite well, and I think that we also understand the evolution of life on Earth quite well. And it would be surprising if we ever got to the point where we are now, and there would be no remains. Like, we produce a lot of stuff in form of just steel and concrete and whatnot, and this stuff doesn't necessarily all go away. And I think we just exceeded. I remember reading a headline like yesterday or today that the stuff that humanity produced in its lifespan just exceeded the whole biomass of the planet Earth. So there is now more human-produced stuff on the planet than all living things combined, and that's a lot of stuff, like all the skyscrapers, just everything. And if there was an ancient civilization that went under, I think we would be able to see some remains of that. And what we are seeing are like ancient temples and just stone artifacts, and we don't see semiconductors, and we don't see iron skyscrapers, steel skyscrapers, and so on and so forth. So I'm skeptical of the claim.
I'm with GIGI on that one. In fact, I'm with GIGI on most things. If you want to know my opinion, just see what GIGI says, and I'm there. I agree.
Yeah, look, I'm a bull between two bears. I get it. It's all right.
Well, somebody meme that. A bull between two bears. Somebody meme that.
The bull between two bears. No, I mean, obviously valid points. But I also think how quickly, if we really went down that road, how much have we forgotten on how to do accounting? Businesses would be destroyed. How we don't grow our own gardens anymore. We don't take care of ourselves. The supply chain is very fragile. So it's fascinating to see how quickly we would just go back down to Neanderthal level, at least.
Oh yeah, I mean, societies have collapsed in the past and have collapsed quite quickly, I would say. And what's interesting in the Bitcoin context is that it almost always coincides with a downfall of money. And so I think I would even go as far as saying that societal collapse is imminent if it were not for Bitcoin. I see Bitcoin truly as a way out. Like, I think we need a beacon of truth to rally around again, and I see Bitcoin as this beacon of truth. I think society in general is in such disarray, and it also loops back to what you said before with all this disinformation and the information flood. And I think you just need something that you can rely upon and concentrate on and rally behind. And Bitcoin is this thing. So I don't say this lightly. I truly believe without Bitcoin, we would be collapsing quite soon and quite catastrophically. And I don't think there would be a way out. Like, would you barter again? Would you use gold again? I don't think so.
I can't disagree with you. That's obviously part of the reason we're here. When I look forward, it's going to be just a crazy, I think, two halvings ahead of us. We're coming out of the halving that we haven't even seen the quote unquote financial repercussions. We haven't seen the number go up yet, but there's a world that has now opened their eyes to Bitcoin, and I'm fascinated to see what's going to happen. It's going to be nuts. The next two halvings, absolutely nuts till 2028.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm afraid that it won't be a smooth ride. I think it will be. I think it will get very, very nasty, because the people that are in power, they won't give up that power lightly. And I think the dominoes start to fall everywhere. Like, I think some people start to realize what Bitcoin is, and they will do everything in their power to undermine it, to stop it, to attack people that are behind it, and so on and so forth. I think what happened to the internet is very instructive. Like the internet was hailed as this free flow of information utopia, and I'm not saying that we don't have that, because we have that to a degree. We have strong encryption technology, we have free platforms, we have free and open source software, but most of the internet is Google and Facebook and Amazon basically, and it was undermined by companies, and the governments undermined these companies. And so we basically have the same thing that China has with the Great Firewall. It's just a different flavor of censorship, and it is a lot of self-censorship and just platform censorship. And I definitely see similar attacks playing out in Bitcoin, and we must be vigilant and fight back against that. And we can see the beginnings of that already. I mean, stupid people that don't have any idea how Bitcoin works are talking about self-hosted nodes, and are talking about, making self-custody illegal and making self-hosting illegal. And we see services popping up like Robinhood and PayPal, where you can buy Bitcoin but you cannot withdraw. So what the fuck is this? Like it's like you can create a web page on our service, but nobody can access it. So that's just a joke. And I think this will continue. So.
No, it's like the Hotel California. You can enter anytime you want, but you can never leave, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll tell you what. One of my favorite things I saw in the book. I mean, what a great summation this was. Basically, the history of the world was inflation created by the government for the government. I mean, absolutely hits it home, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's also noteworthy, I think, I'm not sure who said it. Maybe it was Hayek. That there is no mild inflation. Like the mild inflation is a myth, and once you understand exponentials, that just becomes intuitively true, because there is no stable exponential growth. Like a percentage growth, no matter how small, even if it's 0.001%, it's still exponential growth, and at one point you're gonna hit the knee. And like a 2% stable inflation, it's just a joke, like all of it is a joke. Like mild inflation always leads to outright inflation. And I think this is what Hayek said as well. And it leads to outright inflation, and then it leads to hyperinflation. There is no other way. There simply is no other way. And we see that historically with all fiat currencies. If you go to Wikipedia, there is a list of historical currencies. It's basically the list of dead fiat currencies. And they all either hyperinflated or shortly before a hyperinflation event were replaced by another currency. And it's oh man, it drives me insane when people talk about stable growth. Like stable growth is an exponential. A stable 2% growth is an exponential. And if you don't understand, like I don't even see how people can study economics and talk about stable growth all the time. It drives me up the wall, man. Like I want to blow my brains out because people are so stupid.
Don't do that, GG.
No, I got to jump in.
I mean, you're gonna see. Looking at the guy, you can see it's just a brain really talking.
Yep.
I have to ask, is GIGI really just an AI, and this is his way to disguise? It's just a superior intelligence right now. Puppy, all right, the word is yours.
Look, to get your head around some of these ideas, it's very difficult, and it's a great. I mean, to have a book like this where you offer up different visuals to help people get around it, or different thought experiments. I loved it. The one I really love, and you've heard it for years, and you'll read it, I think, in even the Bitcoin Standard by Safadine, the coin clipping. The one picture of the coin on the left, and then after they clip off some to the right, and you got the black background behind it. I was like, yes, a visual for people to see how the government will just they clip it. They clip it every step of the way. I love that part.
Yeah, now we have digital coin clipping, and they call it NERP and some other, like all the stupid names. What drives me mad as well is that all the vocabulary makes it so obscure, like negative interest rate, as if this was a real thing, like negative interest rate. And interest rate by definition, interest is always, it has to be positive. Like it's like it's valuing your time negatively. It's so stupid. Like all of it is so stupid. And the negative interest rate is basically just you know, you're putting the money in the bank and we're stealing from you. That's what it is. It's and also calling it a tax on savings or something. It's all a play on words, and it hides it hides what is actually happening. And I hope that more people will learn this before they will learn it by a lot of pain. You know, like usually most people only learn when they are suffering, and I think a lot of people are currently suffering, and they will suffer even more. And I hope that with with some of the articles in the book and stuff like that, I hope that some people wake up a little bit sooner and realize what's going on, and they can learn through curiosity as well, and don't have to learn through pain alone necessarily.
Amen. And I agree about the suffering. People wouldn't be suffering to such an extent right now if it wasn't for the central banks. If people had money that, and we lost Poppy there, but if people had money that could store value and also would increase in value, because that is the natural direction of money, is that because GDP goes up, because we get better at producing different goods and services more and more efficiently and cheaper, the value of money, as if it's fixed with like sound money with Bitcoin, then people would become richer and richer from those savings, and we would have a double-digit % of the population being financially independent. And people might question that and say, but yeah, that's not possible. How could that be possible? It would be possible because, as Jeff Booth says, with the deflationary nature of technology, we don't all need to work very hard and fight from the first of the month to the first of the month to be able to afford the things that we need to survive in our lives. Having automation and technology advances, we'd be able to be free and not necessarily have to slave it away 40, 45, 60 hours a week in some job.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, go ahead, Gigi.
And that's the whole point of progress and technology in the first place. It's saving time, and it's doing things more efficiently and specializing more, so that you don't have to grow your own food and milk your own cows and so on and so forth. You don't have to build your own house. You don't have to do everything that's necessary to survive. And we see it, as you rightly said, there are some things that where progress was so quick, where we really see the power of a deflationary environment. Just take smartphones and personal computing, for example. Like computers in the last 20 years or so, or probably even way longer, like I'm sure way longer, but let's just take the last 20, 25 years. Computers always got like twice as fast. Everything got twice as good. Like they got twice as fast, twice as much working memory, twice as much hard drive memory, and so on and so forth. And they always come down in price. Like you paid 50% for the computer that was like 4 times as good. And we saw that play out. So people are not complaining, and people are also not stopping consumption. Like everyone is buying a new computer all the time. Everyone is buying a new phone all the time. The new iPhone comes out, everyone jumps on it because, of course, it's twice as fast as the old one, and it has the better camera, and so on and so on and so on. And not everything develops that quickly, but everything is on the same trajectory. You really think it's more costly to produce 1 liter of milk than it was 100 years ago? Hell no. Just look at how automated many things are. Just look at the technology behind modern farms, stuff like that. And I'm not saying that everything is good, but just in general, people get more efficient, tools get more efficient, processes get more efficient, and everything should become cheaper. We just don't feel it. Like it's the biggest hoax in human history. Like it's an insanely genius way to enrich the one at the very, very top that kind of know what's going on, and everyone else thinks that everything else gets just more expensive over time. Everything gets more expensive. Just listen to old people. Like just listen to any grandma or grandpa. They will tell you that everything was way cheaper previously, and it's just everything gets more expensive and more expensive, and you can't afford a normal life anymore. And all of it is related to inflation. All of it. We're not getting worse with building houses. We're not getting worse at growing food. We're not getting worse at all those things. It's just the money that's broken.
Yeah, I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. And Poppy and I, we do have the timeline to be able to confirm to all of you that yes, things do get more expensive. Am I right, Poppy?
This was a question I was trying to get into with Jeff Booth a bit on Tuesday, was planned obsolescence. And there's two ways that you do it. There's planned obsolescence where you build things just to break down. For example, cars after the exact 6-year note comes up, but also by the creation of desire in someone to, oh, my friend has the latest of this, which usually comes with phones. Your phone from 2 years ago probably does 90% of what this one does. And I get Moore's Law and all that changing. But I always am interested in how do you value planned obsolescence into the current system? When you couple that with inflation, man, Bitcoin is the only way to go.
Yeah, I think planned obsolescence and phenomena like it are just part of the fiat economy, the high velocity trash economy, as Pierre likes to call it. It's just, the idea is basically, it's back to the stable growth idea, like growth at all costs. If you have a public company, you need to grow quarter over quarter over quarter. Like if you're not growing, then you're dying. That's the saying. And to contrast that with like company structures that we saw under a sound money standard, we saw family businesses that stayed basically the same size over generations, and they knew exactly what they're doing, and quality improved and output improved as well. But it was not like growing by 10% every quarter. And growing by 10% every quarter is just not sustainable, and also does not lead to quality. So that's why you end up, in my opinion, in the high velocity trash economy, where just you try to get as much garbage out as you can, and of course people have to throw it away and get new garbage. And I really hope that a lowering of time preference in general in individuals and also in companies leads back to this more Renaissance thinking and low time preference thinking, and just planning and building for the long run. So I definitely see that in myself. Before I got into Bitcoin, it was impossible for me to make any like 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10-year plan. And now I feel suddenly that it's possible, because I know I can rely on this thing to still be there for me, and I also can rely on my savings to still be there. And it's insane how much this little change in technology, so to speak, changes your whole perspective and changes your whole life.
So, question for you. I'm going back to Michael Saylor for a second, and what he's doing as putting things on the books. So this transition of Bitcoinization, like you say, will take place in different parts. At one point, it will be the straight, I don't want any of your fiat, I don't want anything you have except Bitcoin. But there's going to be a transition between people that do not want to give up their Bitcoin early, and there's going to be people that just want the representative. Maybe it's a stable coin, I don't know, whatever they have. Do you foresee a point where the transition is from not only fiat just to a digital currency pegged to Bitcoin until they get used to it and understand it?
Maybe, I don't know. Like I think we will definitely see it. I mean, we see it already. All the degenerate gamblers and traders, they use stable coins all the time. And but I think it's similar to using exchanges. We will see it for a while, and people will learn that those things are not decentralized, and those things are not too big to fail. Like some stable coins will definitely fail, and it will be catastrophic, and everyone who uses them, they will again have to learn through pain. In terms of transitioning from holding Bitcoin as a reserve asset to requiring Bitcoin as payment and paying other people in Bitcoin, and basically transitioning from Bitcoin as a savings technology to Bitcoin as a currency, I think it depends on your, again, conviction and personal preference. And I think we will see similar things happening in companies as we saw historically in people. Like there are some people that adopted Bitcoin as their reserve, as their treasury asset a long time ago. And they're now living on a Bitcoin standard for 100%. Like they only own and they also spend Bitcoin, because what they own and what they spend is like 0.1% of their net worth. So it doesn't even matter, you know. Like if there are enough people that you know, they can retire early and they have their stash and they're not afraid of spending their stash. And I think we will see, if Bitcoin continues to work in these kind of cycles, we will see more and more individuals adopting this strategy, because you can buy yourself a lot of freedom with wealth. You know, you don't necessarily have to work. And the same might be true for companies as well. You know, like if just look at MicroStrategy. You know, like they were able to double their net worth on paper in the last month or so, I think. You know, like something like that. So what will be, like, what are they able to do strategically if it's not only a doubling, but if it's like 20x? If they 20x their worth, like I don't know if we have seen something like that historically without pivoting completely to something else. I mean, you could argue they're a Bitcoin fund now, but they're still a technology company. They have still positive cash flow, like every month, every quarter. They still rake in millions all the time, so they don't really have to do anything. They can. Who knows what Michael Saylor is going to do? You know, maybe he will buy up the whole competition. Maybe he will go into the space business. Who knows? You know, like what you're going to do with all that money? Maybe he's truly holding for 100 years. What I definitely think what we will see is financial products that let your Bitcoin work for you. And we see that already with lending. I think we see, like, Bitcoin is the perfect collateral, for example. And I see, as long as fiat is still around, people will take out loans backed by the Bitcoin to pay their fiat expenses. And I think what excites me, like, that's not very exciting to me, but what excites me a lot is what's happening on the Lightning Network now. And we see people now like putting their sats to work in a serious fashion on the Lightning Network, not just earning routing fees. Like routing is all fun and it's good, you know, but still, to solve the liquidity problem on Lightning, we have now Lightning pools, and people are able to lend out their liquidity, and you have basically like yield farming, Satoshi yield farming on Bitcoin with Lightning, and all of this makes me super bullish, because that means that if you know what you're doing and you have enough Bitcoin, you can basically generate an income just from your Bitcoin alone, and you don't have to do any speculation trading or trading back to fiat or anything like that. So all of that is super bullish.
Well, it is to me, but you know, my question is, at this point, is why sell and when sell? Because there's no reason for many years, in my point.
How
what?
many times do I have to tell you that things will be priced in Bitcoin? You don't sell Bitcoin for a dirty currency. It's the only thing that any shop will accept to, you know.
Yes, you know. Yes, but look, the shops are stupid. For a while, they're going to keep taking the fiat. That's my point. There's a transition period between when the people that have Bitcoin now will transition into the stable coin later, because the stable coin is coming, whatever the national digital coin they give you, that's coming. Okay? And you borrow, you leverage against it.
I mean,
but it's going to be, it'll be, to me, years. But until then, you propose a Bitcoin that literally has a halving. The scarcity just drives the price up. Why in the hell would I ever get rid of it when I can leverage it against something else until the absolute last minute? The last minute, then I okay, I'll give it back to you guys. The Bitcoin and the talk.
So, like in my religion, selling is a sin. So by religious practice, I am forbidden from selling ever. So I don't believe in selling at all. Not at all. Like Every
Yeah.
holy Saturday, I cherish my sats, and sats are all that count. So I count my net worth in sats, and that's all that counts for me. And selling reduces your set count, and it's not guaranteed that it goes up again. So selling is in general a sin, and you just should do it. It's very similar to, there are those slave beads, and there are those gold coins, and you know that both exist, and you kind of understand how money works. When is a good time to get rid of your gold coins and acquire slave beads? Like only maybe to buy slaves. And I think it's similar in the Bitcoin and fiat world. Like if you're forced to use fiat to pay your rent or to pay at a shop, I think there will be financial constructs that allow you without parting with your Bitcoin. Like we see credit and debit cards popping up already, with Fold app, for example. And like I think all of this is being developed currently. That you just just treat every fiat currency like a foreign currency. Like no matter where you are, like you have your stash. For example, if you go to Thailand, you don't in advance buy as many baht as you can and transform all your dollars into baht, and then you go to Thailand. You have your card and you pay, and everything is done in the background, and you owe this shop 20 baht or whatever it is, and that's it. And just treat it in the same way. You have your satoshis, and if you're forced to pay in dollars or in euros or in yen or in baht or in something else, there will be ways to just pay this invoice and everything will be taken care of automatically. And we see the reverse is true as well. So it's not an either or, like Jack Mullers is working on Allen Strike, and this works beautifully. Like you connect it to a bank account, and if you still have fiat, for example, if you have a fiat income and you want to pay Lightning invoices or just pay Bitcoin invoices, the reverse works as well. And so these are the options. And I think if you truly understand Bitcoin, it is in your best interest to denominate your savings in sats and just to have your Bitcoin savings account. And that's the only thing that matters. And fiat is play money anyway, like treat it as you're going to the casino. You have these funny casino chips. And if you lose it all in this night, who gives a fuck? Like it's play money anyway.
Yeah, love it. But Gigi, I'd love to hear you say a little bit more about, because I love this thing about lending out liquidity on Lightning Network, because it's part of the economy there that makes it work. Make sure there's liquidity enough for solid payments on Lightning Network. What is the type of return you can get on lending out your sats on the Lightning Network, and which places do people go to start adding liquidity to a liquidity pool and earn some sats that way?
So first of all, I'm super bullish on Lightning. Like all the work that people do on Lightning is insane. All the problems are being solved, and there are still a lot of problems to be solved. And the incoming liquidity problem, for example, is one of them, and that's what Lightning Pool solves. And I'm super bullish on Lightning Pools. But just keep in mind that it's still very early days, so I can't even tell you the numbers. I would have to pull them out of my ass, basically. I think there are not too many people that are using it yet, and you need to have some well-established fat channels to use it properly, as far as I can tell. And so I don't even know the percentage returns that you can make, but it's still very small. But I believe it doesn't matter too much because it's working. And yes, it's just kind of a proof of concept, but still, like the whole Lightning Network is kind of a proof of concept, but it works beautifully. And many Bitcoiners are using Lightning every day. Like I myself, I use Lightning every day. And I'm so bullish on it, because what started as a reckless experiment, and that wasn't too long ago, mind you, like Lightning is like 2 years old now, and now we have stuff like the Sphinx chat app built up on it, and there are podcasts hosted on it, and you have streaming payments working already. The stuff that Andreas Antonopoulos talked about like 5-6 years ago, that was like, it's theoretically possible, streaming money and so on and so forth. It exists now. It exists on Bitcoin. And Podcasting 2.0, the platform built by the podfather himself, Adam Curry, he's behind it, and he's like reinvigorating podcasts and free speech on the Lightning Network. It already works, and And if you stream it via the Sphinx app, you're paying like 1 sat a minute or whatever you have set in your settings, and it all just works beautifully. And the same with Lightning pools. It's like the first version was released, I don't know, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, something like that. It's still CLI only. You need to know what you're doing. You need to have your channel set up properly. There is not an easy way to interact with it, but it doesn't matter because it works. And I think Alex Bosworth already made like a couple million sats just by letting liquidity alone. And it's super, super bullish to see all that, because I can tell you in like probably way earlier than I expect, but at least in a year, it will be part of every Lightning node, and you just have a nice GUI interface where you can click around. And we see it already with, for example, auto balancing channel liquidity. This works now as well, and you can have a graphical interface where you say, I want to have my channels balanced automatically 50% all the time, and everything happens in the background automatically, just like with the internet. All the packets route themselves automatically, like your devices connect automatically. You don't have to set IP addresses anymore. You just everything works, and it's the same thing. Like all of that will be abstracted, and all of that will work. I think it's gonna happen way quicker than most people think. Like I'm constantly surprised of how fast this shit is moving.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. I'm just going to throw in a note here before we go. GIGI, I love how you're saying how you're describing Lightning Network and the whole potential there. And so a couple of months ago, I think or maybe half a year ago, I asked Elizabeth Starkness on Twitter DM about when Lightning Network will come out of beta, watchtowers and all of that, so you could start using it with a little bit bigger funds. And she said, listen, what you got to understand, well, this is not an exact quotation, but what I should understand is that even Bitcoin is kind of not out of a beta yet. So it is what it is, and don't expect this to be all the final game. It continues to evolve. Attack vectors continue to be patched. But yeah, that was funny. Poppy, you have something to say as well.
No, I got distracted because I put out a meme on Mr. I.O. Pal again, and it blew up. So, Jesus. Yeah, so getting back to the conversation, yeah, moving forward, yeah, the end of next year, 100,000. By July 2022, we're hitting that 300,000 range because everyone likes that number go up. Technology.
Yeah, or we are all gay, right?
Or we're all gay. Hey, look, man, the memes are the memes. Listen, it drives Bitcoin Twitter. It drives it, and like you say, you either have a thick skin, or you won't last too long. You won't last too long in this game. No, so what I think has been fantastic. Your book is the perfect entry level in my mind to most young adults and adults coming in to jump in. So if you write a next book, how do you write it? Where do you go from here? What articles? Because I talk to Knut Svanholm sometimes, and I know he also turned his first few articles into his first book and came out with his own book. But moving forward, what is your next book about?
So my next book is going to be called 21 Ways, and it's going to be about 21 ways to look at Bitcoin. At least that's the current working title. I've written 4 chapters so far, almost 5. I slowed down a bit because I just have too much coding to do.
Yeah.
So I split my time into writing code and writing words. And with the baby and everything else, there are just not enough blocks in the day to do everything. Like only 144 blocks in a day, so use them wisely. And I hope to expand on some of the thoughts that I put into some of the articles that I wrote after 21 lessons. And it was about, for example, how Bitcoin is first and foremost an idea, and how Bitcoin is has gravitational pull, not only in terms of money and wealth, but also in terms of idea, and since it is an open system, it can also incorporate other good ideas. So if something like if some other technology or even some shitcoin comes out with something that's halfway interesting or meaningful, Bitcoin can definitely adopt it and absorb that as well. And I just to give you a sneak preview, for example, I just finished the chapter on how Bitcoin is time. And I don't mean that in the Bitcoin is stored time sense, but Bitcoin is literally the solution to a timestamping problem. And Bitcoin makes its own time, which is block time. And a lot of people don't really understand what kind of problem Bitcoin solved. And this is a very long, elaborate chapter on how Bitcoin is time in the literal sense, and human time doesn't matter for Bitcoin except for the difficulty adjustment. But Bitcoin literally, like everything that is in the mempool, is completely timeless. And once it lands in a valid block, the block is a time step. So if you think of seconds as the smallest unit of time, the seconds in Bitcoin are the blocks, and you have block time in Bitcoin, and it is a really interesting solution to an unsolvable problem on Earth, because on Earth, from one side of the globe to the other side of the globe, it takes light 50 milliseconds to travel. So you can never say what happened before and after because of relativity. And if you want to order events, absolutely, you're already completely fucked on Earth. And Bitcoin solves this problem perfectly by introducing its own sense of time. And those are the kinds of things I want to write about in a new book.
Poppy, I just want to say it's so convenient for me now compared to half a year ago, that to learn new Bitcoin knowledge, to get bombarded by heavy Bitcoin intelligence. We just switch on the show and we have great guests that educate us on what the hell is going on in Bitcoin, man, on the next level kind of.
Yeah, how do we have 26 people watching this right now? I think, this is, it's amazing. The guest always brings in the talent over here, but yeah, we got some great people. It's hard to, as you say in your book, it's hard to pass on to others what the entire meaning is. How do you wrap your head around it? I always just go with, hey, listen, digital scarcity. We found something that actually gets more scarce as time goes on. So to me, Bitcoin is more scarce in time. That's all.
Yeah, Seyfedin said that as well. Like there are only two things in the universe that are truly scarce: time, and now there's Bitcoin as well.
I know. I think I stole it from I stole it from him. That's where it came from.
Sorry for calling you out.
No. Yes, no. Trust me. I like when someone steals my memes and throws them out on Twitter. It's okay. Listen, but everything builds upon itself like that. The memes, the education. You read something, you don't know you've read it until later on, and all of a sudden it clicks in you, and you think it's your own idea.
But how is start? We don't know for a fact time is not internet. But we know Bitcoin is internet. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't really get you. I think you broke up, or Toby, something is too loud in the background.
Yeah, I'm muting Poppy here, which is always and he's getting angry now. So what I'm saying is, but how can we say that time is finite? We don't know that it's not infinite, and but we do know that Bitcoin is finite. So how is Bitcoin not more scarce? Because we know 100% sure that Bitcoin is 100% capped and scarce, while time we don't know that if it's infinite.
Yeah, absolutely. I would argue as well that Bitcoin is even more scarce than time.
Thank you.
But it's I think the argument goes mainly that your own life is finite, and you only have so many years, so many good years to do anything useful or interesting, and so it is an interesting economic calculation that you can do for yourself in your head. How much of your time would you be willing to sell for Bitcoin? For how much Bitcoin? So I think, yeah, time and Bitcoin, that's what it's about.
Yeah, still here. Just realizing we're hitting the magic 2.5 hour mark of the show, by the way. or two.
Matching about
Yeah, got to.
Nano.
Can't hear you.
Shit, am I gone? What the hell?
Oh no! Oh no! It's just your microphone was buried into your beautiful scarf.
Dang.
No, it's man. No, I gotta wind it down. Here, after 2.5 hours, got a few things to do, but man, what a show! GIGI, a pleasure. Obviously, we hit on so many topics. So many topics.
It was great.
I think we hit Bitcoin in one 2.5 hour lesson here.
Yeah, I think we did. GIGI, thank you so much for coming on and being one of the coolest AIs in Bitcoin. It's been really nice, and it's call it really nice view here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I will do my best of lip reading what you're saying, Anders, because I think your Solify headset just broke, as someone was saying in the chat. But yeah, guys, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. Always great to have a beer and talk Bitcoin. And yeah, keep up the great work of the show. Keep having fun. Like I always say, if you're not having fun in Bitcoin, what are you even doing? You know, like if you're not having fun, like shit posting and getting rich at the same time, and shitting on like the big finance people and on Wall Street investors, like it's the best thing in the world.
GIGI, apparently the poor memes will go out, but you're a perfect fodder for another group chat we have. I'll DM you offline.
All right.
Awesome.
Can't wait to see what's in store.
No, thanks, man. No, I'm looking forward to a second book, because it shows how much the first book meant to you, what you've learned from that. So yeah, I'm quite curious. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'll like in my pinned tweet has a link to the book. You can follow me how this is progressing. As I said, I fell a little bit behind, but I'm still aiming for 2021, because 2021 will be the year of Bitcoin. You heard it here first. We will be running Bitcoin Core version 0.21, so it will be version 21 after that, and we will have year 2021, and it will just be crazy. Like all the Corona stimulus, everything will hit at the same time. The halving cycle will go through the roof. Like everything will work out like clockwork, and 2021 will be the most insane Bitcoin year we had yet.
Now is GIGI the bull? GIGI the bull here.
Yeah, imagine this being like calling $1 million Bitcoin halving cycle and level fiat currency, and actually being the most insane ever. It's being called a beer on this show. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I just want to thank you, GIGI, so much. Because you guys may not hear me, why don't you do find first to GIGI if you have something you want to talk in the show? Is the link
That has to be the best outro in the show's history, I think. Like I think we can leave it at that. Whatever Anders said, it was great.
Do the outro, Bobby. Do the outro.
Listen, I'll sign off with this. One, thank you. Thank you for coming in, because I can tell you we have 20-some people that love the show, join the show. I know they were here for you mostly. So thanks for your education, and thanks for how many people you've really brought into the space. And thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate it, and we're going to check back with you soon.
Awesome, awesome. Again, thanks for having
Yeah.
me. And yeah, keep doing
Yeah.
what you're doing. It's obviously working. You're having fun. It was a great time. Everyone in the chat, shout out to the chat. Like I had a lot of fun
Yeah.
just reading reading everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, some great
Hey,
meme lords there.
hey, a side thing, because I think I reached out to you earlier and I meant this. You know, you had a child this year in some difficult circumstances. So hey, welcome to fatherhood. Enjoy it.
Thanks.
And all the best to your wife and your child. Okay.
Thanks. I'll pass it
Cheers, man.
along. We're having a great time. Yeah.
All right, friend.
I'm gonna attempt an outro since Poppy's just laughing. So be careful scrolling down and see it disappear fast. I don't know if you guys could hear me, but our view numbers exploded by 20% since my audio went to hell.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, Gigi. Take care, brother. And Anders, we'll talk
All right.
later, man.
Yeah.
Ciao.